Bole Baba Ki Jai. Welcome to the second day of Navratri here at the Hedikunda Universal Ashram. And we are graced this Navratri with 4 of us who actually were in the presence of Sri Mahaprabhuji Babaji in the late 70s and early 80s. And anytime that happens, there's a confluence of devotees. It's a wonderful thing to have satsang so that everybody can hear the stories. We love it because you tell me a story, I remember a story I forgot. And it just is so inspiring. So we found this. So take advantage of this, and there's more devotees coming in the next few days, so we'll have more. So, Bole Baba Ki Jai. I'm Ramloti, and this is Nath from Tacoma, Washington, and Emily Golden from Santa Fe, and Gloria from the ashram.
From Israel.
And also from Israel, yes. But now living at the ashram for some weeks, and being a great servant.
And here's a cheering crowd.
You got it. Pretty good for an impromptu gathering. So who would like to start with a story or just some inspiration that you would like to share? We look to you, though. Not. We'll look to you.
You're the head of the whole thing.
So, Bole Baba Ki Jai. So I'd like to, if I might, share a realization or an understanding that I had just today at the fire. And partly I'd like to share it because the arc of learning in this tradition for me is very, very long. And so when I first heard about Sanatana Dharma, because it didn't fit into a category I understood, I was kind of, it was not meaningful to me to hear that Babaji was coming from Sanatana Dharma. As time has evolved, I understand that Sanatana Dharma is actually the seed religious or spiritual insight for humanity. So it was the Sanatana Dharma that gave rise to the early Vedas and to the earliest known spiritual transmissions in the world, basically. And so we have in Sanatana Dharma this extraordinarily deep and extraordinarily insightful way of understanding the non-duality of creation and the oneness of all of life, and life emerging out of, in that language of Sanatana Dharma, all of life emerging out of Brahma. So in this 9-day festival, we celebrate the 9 aspects of Durga Ma. The Ma is, this is my understanding, it's all provisional. It'll change tomorrow, right? So this is not, some kind of, but for me, the mother energy represents that open, spacious, non-dual matrix of creation itself. So everything comes out of this silent place of creative energy. And we celebrate 9 aspects of that creative gesture of all of creation. Interestingly, those 9 aspects are echoed in what's called the Enneagram, which is used in Christian and other non-dual traditions. And there are 9 aspects of the Enneagram. And just this year, an institute in California, a very prestigious place called the Mindsight Institute, is releasing a book on the 9 aspects of the Enneagram, not using that language, but the 9 aspects of the Enneagram. And the importance of it that reports back to how we hear the prayers of Durga during these 9 days. It's always this co-arising and interactive dimensions of Durga that we all are a part of all of us, and all of us are evolving through whatever personality or aspect of Durga that touches us most. We're evolving through that toward an insight in the beingness of that non-dual, open, spacious place of creativity. Is that landing for anybody? Yeah. So it's so interesting to me that we in this tradition are lineage holders for like the first iteration of this insight of the human personality that is designed to evolve into an expression of the non-dual reality of love. And specifically in Babaji's, it's the truth, the simplicity of that love in all beings, in all life, and the love of it. So we have this truth, simplicity, and love. So in the book released this year, these psychologists and neurologists, psychotherapists now use this platform, basically from Sanatana Dharma, in my understanding, in 2025 as a guide for psychotherapy. And in Huracan, it was like, this is Baba's hospital. Yeah, this is
good.
yeah. Remember this?
Yeah.
This is we were all, and as patients and students in that hospital, I have to say, none of us got it. Bole Baba, the simple father, the transmission was so vibrantly alive all the time. And speaking for myself, it was like, I was just holding on, trying not to cave in with all of the energy. Just trying to stay in my body. Anyway, that's enough of an introduction of just the evolution. I mean, the power of this tradition and I cry a lot. Go someplace. So the gift of the blessing of this tradition to me is mind-blowingly deep, and always, always, always about learning and letting go and releasing, old worldviews that are not helpful, old judgments. Anyway, so yeah, day by day. So thank you. Yeah, Boli Babaji.
Excuse me. I love that you touch on the love.
Yeah.
And like you said, and also that we're constantly learning. And 45 years later, I get a little inkling of what Babaji was maybe trying to teach me. So I want to pass it on to these ladies who each had, because he would often teach through little examples. So maybe you each have a story that you would like to share.
Yeah.
Sure.
Before we started here, I went to the kutir and I said quietly, and I was sitting quietly at the kutir, just asking to give me courage, because usually I'm very shy. I'm not going to. And suddenly I remember that when I was there, I was 22. I knew nothing. And I was sitting, we were morning darshan, in this long porch outside, veranda. And I was sitting, and behind me was sitting an Italian woman. I think it's Maria. And suddenly she was doing this to me. And I was like, I was fixed on Babaji. And she was like this all the time. I turned, and she said, Babaji, God? I'm from Israel. I was born Jewish. I'm just the first time in India. I need to bow down. So many things that were like, I came because the first time I saw Babaji's photo at Noga's Lord house, I was fixed. I was like, he's my best friend. That's why I came to India. And she's doing Babaji God. I did like that. 40 years, I totally forgot that. Babaji God, I said no. So she was like, okay. Then she's, after a few minutes like this, Jesus, God? I was like, no way. And today, an hour ago, I realized, and because when she was doing it, after she, just enough, I saw that he was staring at me. He tried to tell me, when she said Babaji God, he was sending me a big message. And when you had your tears, I said, okay, I'm going to share that. Because and saying about 40 years, here in the kutir, it came to me, I didn't remember that at all. So now we'll go back to me later. I need a break.
Beautiful, thank you.
Well, I guess I'll make it brief. My story of how I got to Babaji was mid-70s in New York City through rebirthing in Leonard Orr. This is after several weeks with Est and Rolfing. Prior to that, so I heard about Leonard, started getting rebirthed, and the first rebirthing I ever did with him was in a brownstone basement apartment in New York City, and Robin Condon, I don't know if you ever knew his name, had this brownstone that he let Leonard use. And with Leonard was a woman named Diane Hinterman, and she was sort of passing through. He was sort of staying there for a while. Anyway, I got rebirthed the first time on New Year's Eve of 1976 in this brownstone. And shortly thereafter, Diane Hinterman came back with news that she had met this incredible being, Babaji. And not only had she met him, but she had flown through the universe with him. I mean, who's going to believe that, right? But Leonard would. And we were beginning to. So that whetted Leonard's appetite to find Babaji. So I don't know what the intervening time was, but 13 of us decided to go with him to look for Babaji in what year?
77.
77, yeah. So Sanvaray was one of them. I was one of them, I can't remember. And Leonard, I can't remember. I think Jeannie Carr at the time. So we all went, and we had an amazing time, of course, with Leonard. We were rebirthing people all over the place at, government buildings with soldiers with rifles, watching, what is this? Everyone lying down and breathing. I mean, Leonard was outrageous. But as Benny Dansby said, that's the only place to be, is outrageous. Anyway, so everyone went back to America. We had like a 3-week visa. I went back to my 2 children and my life in New York City, and they all went back and got visas to go back now that they had the information as to how to find Babaji. So I ended up going a year or so later, because I had these children. I had this life. And I don't know, it was, there's just a whole lot that was going on. And I don't know, I mean, clearly I was being led to there. When I decided to go on my own to find Babaji, I don't know what inspired me at that moment, but I do remember, to their credit, my father and brother coming with me to Kennedy Airport to wish me good luck. Nobody said, "What are you, crazy? What are you doing?" They just said, "Bye." So that's when I got to the ashram. And the rest is history, which we'll go into at some other time. So,
I want to hear about your story.
which story?
The one when you're sleeping out on the roof.
I was just thinking about that.
Good.
Okay,
Then
that is
tell
a
us
good
the
one, because
story.
it continues to this day.
That's just what Lopa said.
I must say. Well, I went on my own to India. I don't know how I got there. Well, we all know how I got there, but anyway, I get to the ashram up along the riverbank from Harakan, having seen Muni Raji, who got me a guide to take me to the ashram. So I'm walking along the Ganges, which is low tide at that point, so you could walk. And we get to the ashram, and I go up, and they show me where I can put my sleeping bag down in the women's dorm, I think it was. And it was mostly German women there. And I just lay down. I, already probably was not knowing where I was. But the next morning, the woman who had this sort of cave-like space for herself left, and I decided I needed to move into her space to be out of sort of the main throng there. There were just like 3 other women. Anyway, I spent that night. It was very hot. I forget what time of the year it was, but it was very hot. And several people, I'm not sure if it was just women, were sleeping on the roof to keep cool. And I remember going up there and laying down the tarp and then my sleeping bag and going to sleep. And the next morning I woke up and was ready to roll up my sleeping bag. And there on the tarp were some prasad, some sweets wrapped in paper. And I said, how did I get there? I don't remember that happening. So this happened again, and I thought, So anyway, I was there for 5 days, during which time, as an adjunct to this, Leonard Orr appears with a group of rebirthing students coming up the 108 steps. And when he sees me, he breaks out laughing, not knowing that I was there on my own. So it was one of those wonderful putting together that Babaji seems to do regularly. So it was, it's an altered state. You don't know why you're there, what you're doing, but it's all good somehow. And so here I am to this day with a wonderful father there. And many stories, the Black Army stories. And Oh, well, they're just the Italians. I love speaking Italian, so I gravitated toward these great Italian musicians. What more do you want? And they were great and fun, and it was just a wonderful place to be. I mean, we didn't know what we were doing, which you don't. I keep repeating that, but it still is. Huh?
Did you ever find out who put the candy on your...
I figured it had, eventually, a few years later, I think I've connected the dots when I really connected with Babaji. It wasn't just, here's this being whom I had a very brief encounters with, and then he sent me away after 5 days, after Leonard had already come up. And he sent me on a horse, which was lovely because I'd walked there from Haldwani, and with a guide into Haldwani. And from there I could go home. But I didn't know that was all Babaji at the time. It took several years of unraveling. So
Babaji certainly knew our hearts, knows our hearts.
absolutely.
And, after 5 days, your children were probably, where's my mama?
Oh no, they were probably thrilled to have some babysitter there with them. But it was definitely 2 realities, PTA meetings and the Babaji temple in India is juggling.
For sure. What about you, Gloria?
Stories, okay. As a teenager, I smoked a lot. And when I went to Baba in my early 20s, I smoked 2 packs a day. I was smart enough not to get into anything else because I saw I couldn't control that. And when I arrived to Huracan, I was under the title, I stopped smoking. And, after Arti at night, the Italian are standing here and this and there. And I'm like, another night and another night, I'm dying to smoke. At least let me try the BD, at least that. And no, I'm near Babaji, I'm vegetarian, I'm meditating, all the right reasons. And then one night, I just couldn't, and I asked for someone to give me a bidi. Guys, I think it's the second I took the bidi like that, Babaji was standing near me. Until this second, I don't understand how it happened because he went away. He went back at the end of the night. How he showed up, and I felt I was like, and you know what I did? I did like that. I tried to hide it. And he smiled at me, and he smiled, and he did like that. And my heart was, and then he left. And I was like, I think I was sitting there an hour, I didn't move. And it took me a few good days to understand that I need better to make peace with the fact that I want to smoke. To make that
Can you
it's
say
okay.
that again? Make better to it.
Make peace inside within myself that I really want to continue smoking. Simple. Because with every, there is a slang in Hebrew for that. What you hear, you should not smoke, it's not good for you, you are spiritual now. You hear all the judgment about smoking, and what Babaji tried to let me understand that it's okay. And I went back to smoking. I did smoke. And I went back to Israel. I didn't smoke biddies, I smoked regular cigarettes. And it took a couple of years for me to really, really make peace with the fact that I want to smoke. And I know all what it may, the consequences, but still I want to smoke. And then I had, one day I ended on an understanding that I need to, again, another step of making peace with the fact that I'm smoking. And honestly, it fell out of me. I don't know how I stopped, because I didn't stop smoking. It just happened. But all the time I had Babaji's figure doing this to me.
Wow.
It's okay. It's okay to smoke. It's not the end of the world.
Right.
Yeah. It took 2 years until it fell away. Yeah.
Babaji loved us just as we were.
And then I understood it's like with many, many other things in life.
Yeah.
To make peace with what is. To observe it, to accept it, and then you can create some kind of a change.
When I first realized, to a small extent, that Babaji knew everything I was thinking, because
Oh yeah.
I spent a lifetime, and I continue to, hiding. I don't really want people to see my weaknesses and my unkindness and all the different things that are part of me. And when I first realized that Baba saw all that and still loved me, that was amazing. It's probably the epitome of unconditional love. Loving me just as I was, despite my forgetting, It's like, in those days we had to carry the water up to the tank. And so, you didn't have it on long, you just quickly and turned it off. And one day I was just being lazy, in a hurry, and I turned the tap on and I washed, and then I lathered up, and of course, just like you, Baba was there in an instant looking at me. What he said to me was, I know, like, you off the tap. That's how he would say it to me. And but once again, the words and the situation were such that it would normally crumble me. But that, with the love that was in his eyes, that okay to be a human being. We still need to progress and work on whatever we're learning. But so that was a huge realization. And unnerving for sure. Scary. I couldn't hide behind Loke and do something bad, because Baba would be right there.
So I could share another story about the space that Baba lived in. That was, we sing about it, and it's all through our prayers, an ocean of bliss. And our egos that Baba saw so clearly were something, like a piece of, sand in this ocean of bliss. So I had this idea, and I don't know where it came from, but I always wanted to be around Baba if he decided to leave. And in the winter of 1983-84, Baba began telling us to sing these songs, which we didn't understand at the time, but they were death dirges in the Hindu tradition. And Baba began physically deteriorating, really late January, early February. So the time of his body deteriorating, while he was warning us, for a month, it was pretty quick, really. And so, so he finally took Samadhi on February 14th, Valentine's Day, which always to me is significant. It's like my heart of love will always be with you. And in some ways, it's like a Western gift. Mm-hmm. So on the night of February 12th, he didn't show up for kirtan and arti, and some of us went down to his kutir, and I asked to stay with him that night. I may not be able. It's like, dude, let me see. I'll try to breathe through this story. The awareness of the story didn't actually land until this year. So it's like, you'll just have to forgive the tears. I'll try to work through this. Otherwise, we'll go on to somebody else. Right. So Babaji was manifesting a lot of coughing. And just like in the kutir here, there was a space at the end of his bed. And I was crouched down in that space all night. And I had a box of Kleenex that I'd get up all the time and take the sputum out of his mouth. And in a physical reality, it was pretty harsh. But all night long, I was hearing myself recite and knowing deeply in myself that this was just make-believe. That he was just putting on a show. And I didn't understand it, but in the morning, I left the kutir. He had a very generous helper, Mansingh, Mansingh came down, knocked on the door. I was on my way. And I walked away thinking, he's just faking this. This is nothing. This is not this is not real. So that was the morning of the 13th. The night of the 13th, some of us gathered in the kutir, and I'm so sure that this is nothing happening that it didn't occur to me to ask again, because you go through the charade, Baba. And so then on the morning of the 14th, we discovered that he had left his body. And I just anecdotally say that in this tradition, we never say that Baba died. We say he dropped his body. He took Samadhi. And it's like the avatar takes Samadhi. The avatar's consciousness is such an ocean that it drops a body. And so everybody cried. I didn't cry. And even at the time, I thought, God, this is strange. Why am I? It's like, and it was a year to the day later, in Valentine's Day, 1985. I was in Hawaii, and we were doing a havan to celebrate the Maha Samadhi Day, and I broke down in tears. First time. And so all these, and people, when I wasn't crying with others right after the Samadhi, people were saying, and Loknath didn't cry. What about this guy? So what I think I understand now, and again, this is all provisional, folks, was that the power of the transmission of Baba's consciousness was so strong that it drugged me psychically or spiritually into that space with him of the non-reality of death. You hear that? So somehow, being in the presence of it and the power of the transmission, and I mean, this is all of what we experience. We experience a transmission that was unlike anything any of us had ever experienced. I mean, these mind-blowing awarenesses of love. I mean, I was famous for being sent away, and at no time did I take Baba's sending me away as real. So it's like he played in the universe of Maya, the physical reality, with such adeptness. I mean, this is the gift of an avatar. This is an avatar of pure awareness. And, somehow that the power of that play, during the night before he took Samadhi, got into me in ways I didn't understand it. I couldn't actually unpack it. I just didn't understand it. But now this year, I continued to read and study, and I read something and I thought, oh, dude, this was the reality that somehow carried me. And I mean, the story of Diana Hinterman is nice because we all heard Diane's story. And in some way, we all flew in the cosmos of Baba's cosmic awareness and had our own, bits and pieces. But anyway, thank you for letting me share that.
Wow, thank you.
When I look at some of these early pictures of Babaji, the really sort of simple ones, and reading that book by Vijay Gupta and these early, where they had to just put food in his mouth because he wasn't eating or drinking or doing these things. So intellectually, I can sort of start thinking that this, like you're saying, this cosmic being of eternal bliss found himself on earth. It's like, I can't imagine sometimes his look is like, how did I get here? But that's, assigning human emotions to a being beyond that. But to really understand it and think of it, and then also what you're saying about when he left his body. I also didn't cry. I was in Hawaii doing arti that night with a group of Babaji devotees when we got the phone call that Babaji had left his body. I was surprised. I was very disappointed because I hadn't gone this last summer, thinking that I would go the following summer. I'd gone 81 and 82, and I skipped 83 because I was going to go in 84. So I was disappointed. I've always felt, it was one story that I told before of Baba having, I had asked him if I could go across the river with him when in the afternoon he would go, and it was monsoon season, so you really needed some support to get across the river, and it was also Karma Yoga time. So I said, Baba, may I go with you across the river, because I was going to do a slideshow. He said, you should do slideshows around the world or around everywhere. And I thought, okay, well, I can do a slideshow, but I would like to have a picture of Babaji going to each of the temples. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And bless whatever he would do there, or just put his energy there. So I said, Baba, may I go with you tomorrow? Yes, Ramloti. So we go down the stairs. I'm all excited. This is so great. I've got my camera. And then he stops here for some workers, gives some candies here and direction here, because everything was going on in the river bottom. And then he said, you sit here. And so I sat there. It was a big stone right next to the river. And I assumed he was going to go talk to some workers. Then he would come back and get me. And of course, in no time, he was on the other side of the river. with one or two other people and not me. So I started crying. I just started weeping, and I went through the whole scenario of these thoughts that I'm not good enough. If Babaji really loved me, he would not forget me on a rock. He would do what he said, and just crying. And then what I noticed, particularly in his presence and sometimes by God's grace now, I get some wisdom. And what I heard in my heart was, Ramloti, he has given you everything. So much love. My children are here with me. He's loved your children. You're here with him. Stop it. If he said, sit on this rock, sit on the rock. So finally I got to sit on the rock and meditate. And in that moment, I felt his love and his heart fill my heart with so much love. I thought it was going to burst in my heart. And I have to say that I think that's why his leaving his physical presence, and maybe it's a little bit what you were talking about, this idea that it was so full of his heart and his love inside of me, that the physical presence, which was divine, wonderful, but it was not the most important thing that I received. So.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you're all talking about crying, because that's something I have yet really to accomplish. In terms
You
of
really what?
yet to accomplish, as that's what I look at it as, to let go to that degree with all the trainings, whatever. I've avoided a certain area, it seems. So I just love hearing this, and I feel that being here now, who knows, you know, something may, it's a lifetime, right, of not a spring chicken, so a lifetime of doing a certain pattern and whatever. But I think being in Baba's grace is always a good thing. And I'd like to just add a postscript to what I was saying earlier about the candies on the tarp. That's continued to this very day, where I will find surprises in unlikely places, and I know it's Babaji. And other things like, I'll be in a hurry, needing to get place, and he'll just part the traffic so I can just keep going. I mean, it could be circumstance, coincidence, everyone happens to be turning off. But anyway, so there are many wonderful things that Baba will do for you if you just let him in and ask for his grace, which I've done and would continue to do. Well, thank you for your crying. And you, Ramloti.
So,
Gloria, do you have more to share?
One thing, there was one day that we were standing here to move to let all of us come and pranam. And he had this famous stick, right, that he was with. And I was quite the last one to pranam. And as I was pranaming, I felt like with the stick, with all the power that it felt on my back. And people, like that. And I got up smiling. It took 2 days, or 1 day, I don't remember. I was smiling from one ear to the next. Probably he opened, I don't know what he did, but he did something. And people came to me after, said, are you okay? Everything okay? Is your back hurt? You have blues? And I was smiling and laughing. Like for 2 days, I was on a cloud. Yeah, but when they saw, later someone told me they saw that he went with the stick like that, they were like, I didn't know what's going on. I didn't feel hardly anything. It was like someone was touching my back. I didn't feel it. But I heard the, like that. And that's something that until today I'm like, don't know how to digest inside. And then when I got up, I was already smiling. I was already smiling at him, and he was like, the same famous that he used to do to me. Like that. Yeah, and there are so many, the more I get into it, I was 4 months in his presence, and so much little things that it's, in a way, it's endless. At the end, we were traveling with him. I told this to someone a couple of days ago, and we were 7 that were sent in Ahmedabad, I think, to sleep in someone's devotee apartment. It was empty. We slept on tiles, sleeping bag, and we slept. And it was after a few days that really a lot of traveling, a lot of darshans and stuff, so forth. And 7 people, the next morning, none of us got up to arrive for puja and arti. Not even one. All of us, like someone put a spell on us, right? Okay, we get up. Oh wow, we are late. Running. We arrived. We coming to Babaji, pranaming. One by one, you go, you out, you go, you out, you 7 of us, and one of them was Hari Govind's brother was Thomas. One of them was him, and me and another Israeli woman that decided to stay and travel with him because we arrived a group from Israel. And then you can see, we had to go behind the gate, but still can look at Babaji, the big tent. And slowly through the day, you can see everyone going through his process of, because we all want to come back in. And I see Thomas was the first one. He went back to Babaji, Pranam, can I stay? Yes, you can stay. And I got to be jealous. How come he's so quickly, he's okay with that? And because I had guilty feeling. When I went down and I pranamed, and Babaji told me, why late? And I'm like, Babaji, we sleep. He said, no allowed sleep here. I was like, wow, your English is very good. No allowed sleep here. My guilty feelings. And I was so young, I didn't know how to process. Now I understand, I didn't know how to process it within myself. Intellectually, I knew that I need to accept the fact because I saw Thomas, not even an hour, he was back in. And then it took another few hours, another one went back in. And I'm standing behind the gate like an orphan, and then it took time, and in evening or something, I realized we had 2 days more to stay. We need to fly back home. So basically it was the end of the trip for me. And I realized that I had enough. For me it's over, though I can see all of them went back beside us, 2 Israelis, right? 5 went back in. And I was like, I need to do something inside so it will change. It didn't change. But my friend insisted. The next day, they took the bus to another town nearby. It was a huge temple, and she insisted, so we couldn't join the bus, that a devotee. This trip, that we went with Baba, there was a bus that we went with, a private bus that someone, you know that, right? So we had to take the train to arrive to the temple. Hundreds of people, before we even got ourselves into the gates of the temple, talking about Karku. Karku showed up with the blanket like that. He showed, Baba says 2 Israelis, go back. And I'm like, he didn't know we are coming. He didn't, right? He didn't know we're coming. He didn't know we arrived. He didn't know anything. And I asked Karku, how come from hundreds of people, Babaji, you couldn't see him? He looked at me and said, like, he does. So we had to go back. So that's one more little miracle. Yeah. to understand how to accept where you are inside and not to, that's what I understood, not to compare myself to anyone else. To be true to my own path and what I need, because he knows better. He knows, he's with me. Sometimes he showed me, I can see you are thinking. Like, it took me a while to understand, no, this is it for you, it's okay. Thank you.
The Divine Father knows everything about us. So also one time he sent me away also, and I'd asked if I could renew my visa, and he said yes. But then the next morning there was a Leela about, I wasn't really even late for our tea, but I wasn't there when they were feeding them more tea, but my name was on the list of who might be, and so he said, everybody leave. And so went through the similar process, asking for forgiveness. You're forgiven, but you know renew visa. And over again. And Hirman, who has been on many of the satsangs with us, he was there at the time, and he said, Baba really does not want you to renew your visa. So I still had another week, and he allowed me to stay, very, very special time. But just this realization, exactly like yours, is like looking inside. I wanted to get him to say yes, because that was the next step of him showing me he loved me, and that I was special. All the things important to me. But when I really looked at it, I had already said the children had gone home early to get back to school. I was running out of money. I really felt I should be there. Their father needed to travel somewhere, and so I wanted to be there. So inside my heart, I knew, just like you, it was time. But accepting that was something else. It's like, why not? Why don't I get to do it? So he knew, he knows all the time what's in.
Because it plays on our feelings if we're not good enough. And so he brings that to our consciousness.
Exactly.
To be released.
To be released.
Yeah.
To say, what?
Yeah.
What was I thinking?
Yeah. So I have a little quick story I shared with Jen after she dropped the padukas this morning.
Almost dropped it. Close save.
It was a close save, okay.
Close save. It was a football catch, like whoosh. Yeah, I got that.
And you know,
Nice
we could all
guy.
see this stuff coming up with you. Yeah. So what my parallel story is Babaji always carried this kamandal, and that's
Over here.
it's part of the what do we even call it, the mythology and the reality of Lord Shiva. Baba was said to be a Shiva avatar. That's the language that was. So we were coming back from a bath, and I was carrying the kamandal, and we were going up the stairs, and I tripped and hit the kamandal and cracked it. Thank you. I still feel that. And you know, Babaji did not bat an eyelash. And you know, it was, you know, I even had trouble acknowledging that the kamandal had cracked and was leaking water. And so you want to hear a funny anecdote? So I have a kamandal from the time I was in India, and it developed a crack. And I've used it in ceremonies, and I'm always watching water leak out of this kamandal. Anyway, so anyway, it was like I got to share with Jen that the pujas and the looking after Baba are always going to be accompanied by some shit show of failure or train wreck, however we want to call it, for something to come up, because part of it being around Babaji, because there is so much love and our heart is so eager to somehow be present in that love. when something happens, it really, you said it, it's like it comes up in a big way to be released and to somehow be softened and taken in and washed away in the forgiveness of this ocean of bliss of love that surrounds us.
And to trust that.
And to trust that, yeah. So, anyway. Yeah, very, as you can imagine, I don't remember that story often because it's still,
You like to forget that stuff.
forgiveness, like,
I always try to forget that really good thing too.
But it was a great catch. I saw you.
I know, it was all slow motion, like a nightmare, like did that actually happen?
I felt I saw you. It felt like someone else helped you just to catch it like that. It was like,
Terrifying.
wow, it was incredible.
Great.
Well, I'd like to just share one other thing too, that for a while now I've been feeling walking to a store or whatever, meetings, more connecting with people for a nanosecond or a smile here or there and getting something back, mostly. And I've also been feeling physically, I think, my heart expanding. I don't know, maybe it's a heart attack, but I think it's expanding because it's happened for a while now and it's not painful. But I think that what happens with being with Babaji and wanting to live the truth, love and simplicity, that I'm now feeling I'm saying I love you during the day, just sometimes to a person, sometimes just to something I just found that I thought I'd lost, but it's sort of happening involuntarily, this I love you. And feeling, physically feeling my heart, sort of the muscles, I don't know what they do, expand. So I don't know what that is. I haven't asked my doctor yet. So it's a nice feeling though. And I love you, just, and these connections when I'm in New York and I'm stopped at a traffic light and see a woman with some beautiful flowers, I have to say, where'd you get those beautiful flowers? Or you have lovely hair, and they smile, and it's so easy to do, and it just now comes spontaneously, thank God. I've gotten out of the way of my mind somewhat, and more into the heart. I think that's what's happened. Om Namah Shivaya.
And I feel so grateful that we were gifted with this beautiful Divine Mother, Murti, which I feel has so much love and heart. So it's a great, great blessing that we come together and we share our hearts, our service, our love, our songs, our bhajans, our mistakes, everything, our humanity. And that's what Baba said. Right now, it's important to be a good human being, and that does, encapsulate our humanness, our wanting to smoke or eat candy or whatever it is. So, thank you for joining us, and we'll have more of these as more devotees. So, thank you.
You say, Bole Baba Ki Jai, Jagdambe Mata Ki Jai, Nandi Shri Mata Ki Jai, Ram Cow, Ananda Guru. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you, Jiwan.
Thank you.
Oh, Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya. Feels good.